What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Better Sports Network DFS MLB Playbook Show. My name is Justin Fensterman, along with James Grande, and we're going to be talking some MLB action for tonight's games. What's going on, JG?
Nothing much, Fensty. Happy Thursday to you. Thursday means we're that much closer to the weekend, and boy, I could use
What
a
weekend? We
I
work in
could
sports.
I could use a nice weekend at the beach, just kicking back, and it's gonna rain on the weekend, Fensty. You're right, so I'll be inside on my computer all weekend, chopping it up with some more baseball. But nothing much. No Minnesota Twins to let us down on today's slate. That's always a good sign. Yesterday, the cover of the playbook, I made a twin, and they really did let us down yesterday. And for someone you love, something you love so much, so sad to see them let you down so often. But um, you know, Thursday is a new slate. 6 games was 7. It's a great day to be great here, Fancy. That's what I got to say to you. It's a great day to be great.
Yes, and to clear up the confusion, because when you go to DraftKings, whereas you see on your screen, we'll be following along with their price points here, and they noted this themselves up top. You see the disclaimer: the Blue Jays White Sox game will not count towards DFS. So you might see 7 games, only 6 apply here. So we're eliminating them from the conversation entirely to avoid any kind of confusion, James. So I got to ask you this, man. I've been thinking, because we got one lefty on the hill, and this lefty hasn't been a very good lefty lately. Julio Urias is on the hill. And I know a lot of people think, oh, look, facing the Pirates still, man. I don't know if I can trust this guy. And I guess let's start here, because looking at some of the totals tonight, we got some high totals for these 6 games, including the 8.5 for Orioles, Yankees, the Royals, Guardians at 9, the Rangers, Red Sox at 10, Mariners, Astros at 8.5, Mets, Diamondbacks at 10, and then the Pirates and the Dodgers at 8.5. And I got to ask you this, man, as we start talking about pitchers, and if you have any questions regarding tonight's slate, hit us up in the comments section. We will read your comments here. Mark Pitts saying, hi, James. Look at that, an Orioles pitcher in a good spot right there. What's going on, Mark? Good day to you, sir. Let's talk about the high-priced pitchers, James, because when we're going to create our lineup at the end of this, I almost want to fade all the top-priced guys. And when we're talking about the top-priced guys, I'm talking Eovaldi, I'm talking Urias, and I'm also talking Kirby. What do you think about that, man? Because I just think we can save some money on this position. Let me give you some facts here. The Astros over the last 2 weeks, they've been hitting about 285. So they're heating up. That's for darn sure for that Kirby matchup. Boston, top 5 versus righties, hitter ballpark there at Fenway. Eovaldi's facing them. And then Urias, this is one that's simpler. He sucked. And actually, the Pirates, 9th in average versus lefties. I'm scared off of these guys.
Yeah, so it's definitely an interesting top tier of pitcher, and there is definitely some interesting totals, as you mentioned. Some games sitting at 10, and the game sitting at 10 involves the highest priced pitcher of the slate. I have a slightly different take on Nathan Eovaldi, and it's mainly because he's been so good, and for what it is worth, and we talk about sample sizes all the time, right? You talk about recent form of players, and you talk about last 2 weeks, month, the whole entire season. The Red Sox are currently striking out more than they ever have. Over the last 2 weeks, it's almost at a 27% clip. And again, take it for what it is. It's a 2-week sample versus an entire week sample. But there is something to be said about that going up against a guy who is arguably the leader in the clubhouse for the Cy Young now that Shane McClanahan has hit the IL. The guy who might be starting the All-Star game for the AL American League, him or Garrett Cole seemingly are the top 2 options right now. And it is worth noting that Nathan Eovaldi had to navigate Fenway Park over the last couple of years, considering he played for the Red Sox, and really where the breakout started was as a Red Sox. And he's obviously taken that to the next level heading back home to Texas. But he's pitched through warm summers and high totals in Fenway and has had a lot of success in the past couple of years. So I like Nathan Eovaldi tonight, and maybe that is a little different. But you look at the rest of pitching in general, Fancy, you talk about not liking any of the top guys. The position sucks. It sucks. If you worry about Eovaldi, I got news for you, buddy. You're not going to like the rest of the position because Urias, you're right, is definitely struggling, and we don't know what the pitch count's even going to be. Do you want to pay 9,400 for a guy who could be limited? It's a Dave Roberts managed team. He's limited when he's not hurt or coming off an injury. Like, that's just Dave Roberts' coaching style. So that's scary. George Kirby, yeah, he's good. He's like, up and down. It's a roller coaster ride with him, but Houston's offense has been really good lately. Honestly, my number one pitcher tonight, Fensty, is Tanner Bybee with a bullet. It's
Mike too.
It's Tanner Bybee and the field for me. And on DraftKings, we have to play two. If you're playing FanDuel, it's Tanner Bybee and then move on to every other position. I love this kid tonight.
Yeah, I mean, look who he's facing. Royals suck. They're hitting 227 against righties. Can I also sell you as well for decent value on Kyle Bradish as well? I mean, yes. The Yankees also hitting 231 versus righties, and the Yankees are also in general bottom 10 in batting average over the last couple of weeks as well. And I can forgive a team if they're all of a sudden getting hot. What I just mentioned with the Astros over the last 2 weeks, 285. So I can kind of forgive that a little bit if you wanted to go Kirby of the three that I said I'm ultimately fading. But in this situation, I want to go value for pitching, and I'm definitely in on Bybee, like you said, my top pitcher as well. And Bradish is also someone that I'm looking at as well against the Yanks.
Yeah, pitching is really simple for me tonight. Evaldi at the top, Bybee in all my lineups, and Bradish if I'm not playing Evaldi. That is, on certain slates, I understand that sometimes we want to be different and we want to get low in pitchers that are going to go off. But sometimes we have an entire position catcher through outfield to be different at, to be contrarian at. Sometimes in different other sports where you have a smaller lineup, it's not as easy as that. In basketball, chalk is going to be chalk. And if you fade it, you win. If you fade it, you lose. In baseball, we can play chalk at pitcher and just be different offensively. And that's kind of the approach I want to take tonight. Because you're right. The Yankees have struggled. And now they shifted their lineup a little bit to be at the top of the lineup, which should be the case. Because again, Aaron Boone said the other day, well, I'm flirting with Anthony Volpe moving back up to leadoff. And then what did Volpe do last night? He homered in the 8th inning after they moved him down to 8th. After he said he was going to move him up. And then he's like, you know what? I should probably move this kid up because he continues to hit. So, the Yankees lineup looks a little better tonight, mainly because their best hitter in current form is leading off. And I think, what a weird idea. Put your hottest hitters and best hitters up at the top of your lineup. It's a crazy concept, Fancy. I wonder who thought of that first. Maybe it was Bill James, maybe it was Moneyball. I don't know. What a weird concept. But I don't have a wide pitcher net tonight, and Bradish is definitely within that small pool of guys. And honestly, when you look at the Yankees offense as a whole against righties this year, and that is including when Aaron Judge is healthy, right? Just excluding how bad they've been this last month or so, they still rank 20th in OPS. And largely due to this recent bad stretch, but 20th in OPS for an entire season is still bad. They're still bottom 10 in the league. So Bradish is definitely in my player pool. He's definitely one of three guys I'm using. I don't know if there's anyone else that you have interest in.
There's one. There's one.
Okay, and I bet you're probably targeting your Mets because you can't help yourself.
No, it's not right. It's not that I can't help
myself. I knew it. You were gonna.
It's not that I can't help myself.
You want to target Steve? You hate Steve Cohen. That's what it is.
No, I love Steve Cohen. I love him. He said, "Buddy, please, I had to deal with the Wilpons all my life. The Wilpons sucked."
Fair.
Okay,
that's fair.
You know what? I love Steve Cohen. And look, by the way, with that presser, what's he gonna say? He's not gonna give you anything. What kind?
He should have just not had it.
What kind of chicken nuggets were you expecting from Steve Cohen?
Don't have it. Don't have the press conference.
Right.
Why did he need to call? He called it himself. Nobody was he didn't need to have it. He was like, you know what? What's a good idea? I'm going to call a press conference and say nothing that the Mets fans want to hear.
Right.
Okay, dude. Then don't call a press conference.
Can I sell you, though, even though the Mets have all of a sudden figured out how to win at the start of July, can I sell you on Ryan Nelson at all, being that they're bottom 10 versus righties, and Nelson does have 3 straight games of at least striking out 6?
I mean, I said no to you for I poo-pooed what's lefty Tommy Henry the other day, and obviously that worked.
Dude, tell me I'm an idiot. Tell me I'm wrong.
No, look. I don't think it's wrong. I think I have an outlook on the Mets offense that they are better than the numbers suggest, because they should be, right? Like that's just me looking at things and saying, the hell with the numbers. The Mets should be better than what they are. And I understand, but like Nimmo's been really good, and Ryan Nelson struggles against lefties. And Lindor has a lot of power, and obviously he can hit from the left side. And Brett Beatty's been really unlucky. If you look behind the surface level numbers, he has been extremely unlucky from the start of his call up until now. Like, I feel like the Mets have been really unlucky at the plate. Francisco Alvarez has been awesome against righties. Tommy Pham has just been awesome. Pete Alonso is one swing away or one pitch away every pitch from hitting a home run, right? So, like, I know that they are struggling offensively, but there's a part of me that's like, they are better than this. They have a 5-run implied total. Ryan Nelson struggles mightily against lefties, and the Mets have some good lefty bats in their lineup. So, like, I get it. If you want to go to Ryan Nelson, he provides really good value. I mean, he's $6,000. He's the 3rd cheapest pitcher on the slate. You know, it's going to be really hot in Arizona. They're obviously going to close the roof because it's 107 degrees there today, and like we're not going to have heat stroke in professional sports. So like they're obviously going to close, but 10 implied runs. Like, I think there's going to be a lot of runs scored in this game. Is ultimately what it comes down to. Am I okay
I'm cool with still sticking with Bibee and Bradish then. I'm totally cool with that. I just wanted to find one more option. And King of Smack in the chat, once again, talking about Urias against Pittsburgh. Yeah, it's very interesting, but he hasn't been interesting. That's why. You know, he's had kind of softer matchups and he hasn't come through. And maybe, I don't know what his ownership projection is tonight, James. I mean, you're normally right on top of that, but maybe that's your contrarian guy right there, even though he's priced up, right? Or do you think people are just going to be like, ooh, I got to attack the Pirates?
3rd highest projected pitcher
wow.
in terms of roster. But no, like, that's what you just said is why. Because it's a surface level, I should attack the Pirates. That's exactly the reason. And I know that they have been better against lefties. They have guys in their lineup that do hit lefties well. I'm against that personally, King of Smack. And again, like, if Urias beats me, it's fine. But think it through. Well, let's talk this out, right? Julio Urias went into his IL stint struggling. 6 earned in his final start. Had a 4+ ERA for a guy that's been sub-3 for the last couple years. He then came out of his start against one of the worst offenses in the league and got shellacked. And 66 pitches is not exactly encouraging when you factor in, like, we're paying $9,400 for somebody. And when you think about Dave Roberts' managing style, he already kind of puts like caps on pitchers. Look at Julio Urias. Once this year, he's gone to 100 pitches. I'm even surprised to see this many times he's gone in the 90s. We've seen times last year where he was throwing mid-80s and out. 6 innings, 88 pitches, gone. See you later. You're not going out for the 7th. Even if it was like a scoreless out. There's a lot of factors against him tonight. And if you're telling me that he's going to be the 3rd highest rostered pitcher at $9,400, I'm out. I'll just play Tanner Bibee. I'll go up to Nathan Eovaldi, who is not getting a lot of ownership at all, who has been way better this year. And I'll take chances on Kyle Bradish, who's going to be in similar rostership type of tier. So for $2,200 less, might I add. So like I'm out on Julio Urias, and I think Fency was also out on Julio Urias. And like if you want to play him because it's Pittsburgh, that's like what it comes down to. Like the name Pittsburgh Pirates is why you're playing him. But like Fency said, they are top half in the league in most offensive categories against lefties. They've fallen a little bit behind in OPS. They're 16th in the league,
which is still fine, James. Middle of the road is still
middle of the
fine,
road,
considering the lineup we're talking about here.
right? So I'm out on Julio Urias in 9,400. If he proves me wrong, and that's why I lose tonight, so be it. But sometimes we have to take stands, and Julio Urias is someone I'm willing to fade and possibly even target against.
Yeah, and Mark actually wants to fight him. He thinks he could take him. Look at that.
Well,
Mark.
I mean, those goggles are a very interesting approach. I mean, the peripheral vision. I don't know if Fancy as a glasses wearer, I dabbled with the contacts. I have contacts and stuff, but like I don't know if you've ever worn glasses or ever worn them during sports.
No, I have this theory that because the good Lord above took my hair at such a young age, my senses everywhere else are so much stronger.
Okay. Well, let me tell you something. I've had like some sports like goggles.
Oh, like Horace Grant style.
Not Horace Grant style, but those are some pretty bad. I will say those were pretty badass. Like nobody rocked goggles like Horace Grant.
The Bo Outlaw ones were very spiffy too. I like that.
Okay. But like we haven't seen any since. Like nobody, I mean, if you're an athlete, you're just getting LASIK and you're moving on. Now that we have LASIK, in the rotation of like safe surgeries, but no peripheral vision. Like none. It's like this. Like I don't know how people like Horace Grant played in the NBA when you're like this. You can't. I mean, you're telling me you can't see MJ out there on the perimeter? Like, MJ probably had like a buzzer on him. Like every time he pushes, like, all right, Horace, like to kick it out kind of thing. Like that, because he couldn't see him. It was like this.
Well, James, you're onto something because that's why he left the Bulls, because Jordan was gone and he couldn't see him anymore. He didn't think he'd be seeing him. That's the truth. That is the God's honest truth.
Right.
Why he signed with Orlando, or that was a sign and trade essentially.
Yeah, so, I think the sign and trade for sure.
Yeah. So, James, any other pitchers you want to talk about? You want to try to sell me on Jordan Lyles tonight?
No, I'll just mention some ownership that I'm looking at that I find interesting, Fancy, and then we can move on. George Kirby is getting 24%. I understand it because he's one of the guys with a ceiling, but the Astros have been better. Luis Severino getting 20%. That's people being desperate that Luis Severino gets back to where he was pre whatever this version of Luis Severino is. And then late announced starter Ronel Blanco for the Astros getting 20%. Maybe mild interest in Ronel Blanco, but like it's in the slightest way mild. I mean he's allowed 2 home runs in 4 straight starts. Like it is like the most mild salsa you could possibly have. That is Ronel Blanco. Like I don't know. 20% of the field's getting there. It's probably another situation I'm out on.
That is what we're looking at when it comes to pitching. Before we start talking about what hitters we want to discuss tonight, let's talk about an awesome contest hosted by our friends at RT Sports, because you can play the real-time sports daily pick'em contest, set a lineup of player props, hit them all, and win. A few days ago, James Grande and I, on this very show, we each put out one, like we're going to do here. Boom, we won. You could do that as well. Go to rtsports.com/BSN or rtsports.com/alarm. First-time depositors get 100% instant match up to $200 with deposit codes ALARM23, ALARM number 23, or BSN23. Again, first-time depositors get 100% instant match up to $200 with deposit codes ALARM23 or BSN23. Please play responsibly. For help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. James, let's give our RT Sports Pick'em players for these props that we're going to be playing tonight here. And I'll start, man. Jose Ramirez, over 1.5 total bases against the Royals. I have a cardinal rule. when Jordan Lyles is pitching, I use him as a piñata. I go after him because that's what we all should be doing. And this guy crushes righties as well. 332, he's hitting at the dish there. And also, James going to love this. BVP, 4 hits and 7 plate appearances versus Lyles. You went to it the other day, James. It's legal.
It's legal. I can't say anything bad about Jose Ramirez. I mean, just in general, the guy is incredible. In the midst of a really good stretch, and Jordan Lyles has been awful against lefties. So I love that. So we'll parlay your more than 1.5 total bases. And I'm going to actually stick with this same team. And it's been a prop that you guys have seen throughout the atmosphere here on the Better Sports Network. I put it out there in Better Sports Betting. You know what? For this sake, I'll switch it up, Fensty. And I'm going to go back to the Mets. Meet the Mets. Meet the Mets. Da-na-na-na, meet the Mets. And I'm going to go Brandon Nimmo over 1.5 total bases. I love where he's been at. 5 home runs in his last 10 games. There's been a power surge for Brandon Nimmo. And I mentioned the Ryan Nelson struggles this year, specifically against left-handed hitters, rather. 223 ISO, 373 WOBA for Nimmo against righties. Against lefties for Ryan Nelson in a 200 plate appearance sample. 224 ISO allowed, 367 WOBA. He is in some trouble against Mets lefties tonight. Give me Brandon Nimmo 1.5 total bases. So for those at home, Brandon Nimmo more than 1.5 total bases, and Jose Ramirez more than 1.5 total bases. And Fensty, let's throw that in there for another little Chipotle. A little Chipotle bowl again, 7.5. We'll win. We'll half again, like we said. Yeah, guac and maybe a soda. Maybe we know those inflation prices have really hit Chipotle hard.
They have. Oh, our better boss, Matty Deutsch, actually going to invest in Nimmo and Ramirez. $5 wins $15. He's ready to win, and I hope all of you are as well. Again, rtsports.com, the Pick'em contest. Get in to win right now. James, let's move on to the hitting side of this DFS slate, because I'll tell you this, when it comes to the catcher position, kind of like with pitcher, I couldn't really decide which high-priced catcher I wanted. I want to target these Rangers. More on that a little bit later. Jonah Heim, 261, 11 home runs versus righties. I'm in on that, but I'm more excited about some of the value guys, like someone you mentioned in Francisco Alvarez and Yainer Diaz as well, 298 versus righties.
Yeah, Yainer Diaz coming off the double dong yesterday, now 3 home runs in his last 3 games, has actually just mashed right-handed pitch. He is their best hitter against righties this year. And obviously there's no Yordan, so excluding Yordan Alvarez, he has been better than Kyle Tucker. He has been better than Alex Bregman. He has been better than Jose Abreu. He's just been their best hitter. So I like Yainer Diaz against right-handed pitching specifically. So I love that call. I don't like the rest of the tier though, Fensty. I'm honestly, over 4K.
Right, exactly. I almost feel like I'm forcing myself to convince myself about Jonah Heim. But again, like I mentioned, Diaz and Alvarez, both being 37 and 3,600 respectively, I like them better, man. And look, now that's 2 positions right there off the top that we're saving money on so we could get some of those big bats later on.
Yeah, I will say, you could definitely make a case for Jonah Heim, and you could definitely make a case for Rutschman, and you could definitely make a case for Will Smith if you wanted to, but it just doesn't feel necessary, as Mark chimes in here about Jose Trevino, and what are we doing, Mark? What are we doing here? The first comment you made today, we're gonna call Mark out on his ish right now, okay, Fensty? First comment of the day from Mark. Oh, look at that, an Orioles pitcher in a good spot. Hi, James. Followed by Trevino and Volpe stack. Lock it up.
Wait,
Mark.
You missed something. And he wants to fight.
And he wants to fight. Yeah. He wants to fight Julio Rice. What are we doing here, Mark? What are we doing?
Oh,
what are we doing?
This guy, he's good. Mark, oh wow,
Multiple lineups.
Yes, Mark Pitts, he's there. He's ready. I like.
I know the contest. I know the contest that Mark plays in because we're usually competing for last in those contests. So like, I do see him. I know that he is going to play multiple lineups, and that's fair. But it is funny how the first comment it's all about the Orioles, and the second comment it's all about the Yankees. Classic hedge situation here, Fensty. Classic hedge situation.
Right. He's like pretty much saying the opposite of what we're saying. I think he's just trying to get a rise out of us for some reason, James. It's a little trend I'm noticing during this stream here.
Yeah, I agree. It is a good observation, Fensty. Keep something to keep an eye on for the rest of the days ahead, you know?
Mark, we're watching you. Just letting all of you out there as well. If you have a question regarding a player tonight, let us know in the chat. James and I always have a good time hanging out together here on this Playbook show. James, let's move on to first base because now this is where we can start spending up because you're looking at the top of the board here, and I can't see myself putting in lineups that don't have Freddie Freeman for obvious reasons, Christian Walker as well. I'm liking both tonight. I know we're spending a pretty penny, but we just gave you cheap pitchers and cheap catchers, so this is where we balance it out with the big boys.
Yeah, I mean, Freeman gets Oviedo, and Oviedo's been specifically bad against lefties all year. It's just whether or not you think Freddie Freeman is worth 6,300 and kind of a down portion of his season. You know, a guy who has a lot of doubles, but at 6,300, you would like to see a few more home runs. He has stolen a lot more bases this year. I'll give him credit. Like he's provided some spark there where maybe a lack of power. Obviously hard to ignore the matchup. So I'm okay getting to Freeman. I like Christian Walker quite a bit here though. Home runs in back-to-back games. Carlos Carrasco has been specifically bad against righties this year. Like he has been really, really bad as a reverse splits pitcher against righties this year, Fency. 130 plate appearance sample, so more than he's faced left-handed bats. 308 ISO allowed, 419 WOBA, 55.2% hard hit percentage. Like really bad numbers, like numbers that you don't stick around the major leagues with for very long. So I really like Christian Walker. His numbers are really balancing out. He has been historically good against lefties, but the splits are really coming around for him. 228 ISO against righties, 362 WOBA, both very, very, very good numbers. I actually lean Walker in this spot, truthfully, over Freeman. And not to say I don't like the Dodgers and Freeman. It's just, you know, I've been able to rely more on Walker in the home run department than I have been with Freeman. Freeman has kind of let us down in that aspect, and we're paying 6,300 for him. So I like them both, but I actually do lean Walker ever so slightly here.
Any other high-priced first baseman before I throw some value guys at you?
Yeah, I mean, I like Nathaniel Lowe quite a bit. I think Cutter Crawford is kind of in trouble here. I think Texas is the best stack of the day overall, and I think their ownership is going to show that as well. They're going to be a very popular stack, but Cutter Crawford has a lot of power. 179 ISO to lefties, 187 to righties, and Nathaniel Lowe back hitting third in this lineup. 181 ISO against righties, 365 WOBA, doesn't really strike out, walks a whole lot, averages a lot of fantasy points per game against right-handed pitching. I love Nathaniel Lowe here, 4,600. The price, I'm surprised that it's risen to where it's been, considering he's been low fours for a lot of the year and hasn't had he hasn't flashed as much upside as he did last year. We saw the breakout last year, and he hasn't necessarily followed that up, but he's hitting in the midst of the best lineup on tonight's slate. I like Nathaniel Lowe quite a bit at $4,600 here.
Well, then let's answer Eric's question in the chat here, because he is asking either going O'Hearn and Nimmo or Lowe and Pham for a cash game lineup.
Lowe is going to be the more popular option than O'Hearn. I would say the low side of things. It's tough because you're picking between. I like my favorite outfielder is on one side, and my favorite
I knew you were going to say that
baseman is on the other side. Not to say I don't love Tommy Pham. I love Tommy Pham and what he's done lately. Like, Tommy Pham has done no wrong in my eyes. So I'll lean the Nathaniel Lowe, Tommy Pham side, but it's very, very close. It's a good question, Eric.
So, by the way, Mark, once again, back in the chat here, sixth place RBI leader Josh Naylor versus softball pitcher.
Actually, though, listen, if there was a trivia question today, no, and the only reason he's not top 5 anymore is because he missed the last 4 games. Nobody would guess Josh Naylor's 6th in baseball in RBIs. Nobody.
No one. Nope.
Nobody. But he is. He has 60 RBIs in 75 games. He is on a massive pace. It is a noteworthy play, and the Guardians do deserve some love. I like Lowe. I like Naylor. You know, I don't think there's a wrong answer there. You can obviously play Rizzo as well at 41. But Fancy, who are your value plays today?
My one value play, we go to Carlos Santana. What do you think about him here? Because
the musician?
What's that?
The musician?
Yes, because always Carlos Santana when you need a strong guitarist. Carlos Santana. I know you're a little Maria guy, but what about these splits here? 282 versus lefties going up against Urias tonight here. He's cheap. He's been getting on base, I believe, in 3 in his last 4 games. And if this guy can get us 5 to 8 DK points, we'll take that, man. Again, the 282 is where I keep getting stuck on with this guy, as opposed to righties where he's hitting only 228 against them. And we've talked about Urias. We talked about the struggle start last time out, recently coming back from being hurt. I'm liking him as my main value play at 3,200.
Yeah, I like Carlos Santana in the middle of this lineup against left-handed pitching, and that's what makes things a little interesting for Pittsburgh. Like, stacking against Urias is they do have a lot of good numbers against left-handed pitching, and Carlos Santana is one of them. 367 WOBA to add on to the average, 171 ISO. He is a guy who, against lefties, does not strike out and walks a ton, and that has always been Carlos Santana, not the guitarist, the baseball player. He always has a high on-base percentage and walk rate. He has a very good eye, a lot of deep counts. Another reason I don't love Urias tonight is that his pitch count can be driven up mighty high against this Pittsburgh lineup that has a couple guys that strike out, but not a lot of high strikeout rates. I think there's going to be a lot of deep counts here. So I like Santana as value play. I like that call out. Maybe a cheap home run tonight, Fancy. I don't know. Maybe a little more than 5 to 8 fantasy points. I think we could maybe get a cheap home run with how Urias has pitched of late.
Major difference in lefties versus righties for him. One thing we should talk about very quickly, because we're talking about this Cleveland game a lot. The weather in Cleveland, it's a little bit shaky heading into tonight. And I'm looking actually on a radar right now. And man, the humidity starts to go up at around 8 p.m. Eastern. Nothing too crazy. It's one thing if it was rain, but thunderstorms, they can be a little bit inconsistent. All of a sudden, the storm cloud appears, and before you know it, the tarp's going on instantly. We've seen it in Baltimore at times over the last few weeks. Is that something that you're worried about? Because, look, we only have so many games to mess with tonight. And the good news is here, once we hit late in the 9 p.m. Eastern hour, that humidity goes way, way down. So I don't think the game would be called or anything like that. But there is a chance for a minor delay. If the humidity was up at 85%, that's a big time warning sign for me. Humidity only expected to be about 40 to 45%. Not crazy alarming, pun intended, but at the same time, it's still something to take into consideration.
I mean, we saw a money grab situation last night. The White Sox delayed the game, and they basically held out for 3 hours, and then were like, oh, everyone go home, postponed. Like, probably shouldn't have postponed it. And we've seen weird things happen where I'm not worried, but again, I wasn't worried really about the White Sox game last night. So like maybe shame on me for thinking once again, I'm not worried. Good friend Kevin Roth over at Rotor Grinders doesn't seem to be too worried. It looks like there could be a delay, but nothing too concerning. So
our buddy Josh is in Cleveland as well, and he's saying that the rain has faded. And Josh, thank you again for the weather report, but it's more that 8 p.m. Eastern hour when the humidity starts to rise again about 25%, that it's not overly concerning. Because again, when it comes to weather issues, when you see that humidity, the closer it is to 100, the more likely it's going to rain. Earth science, I aced it. And so when you're seeing just 41%, again, not too crazy, but it's still something to keep a watch on for the radar tonight. But that's not stopping me from going after some of these Cleveland bats.
What grade did you, Earth Science was ninth grade?
Not for me. For me, it was 10th. It was biology, earth science, chemistry, and physics.
Okay, because my Earth Science was ninth grade, and I don't remember what. I mean, and you're like 20 years older than me, and I don't remember what I got on my Earth Science exam. I know there was like the state exam, whatever. I
Yep.
passed.
Yep.
I know I passed. I don't think it was by a lot. I think it was I didn't ace it, but like you just the fact that and I aced it. Like you probably know exactly what grade. You probably remember what questions you got wrong. You went back and studied them. Like
Contour lines, man. Took me a while to
I
learn,
mean,
but I retained the information. That's how you read a weather radar, man. That's why you need a master's to be a meteorologist.
True.
It's contour lines on a weather radar, very hard to read. But we've wasted enough time talking about my 10th grade life here. Let's move on to second base here, because this is another position where, not going to lie, I had a little bit of trouble here. I mean, I could tell you very quickly who my eye is on. I mean, Marcus Semien, because I love the Rangers, because we all love the Rangers every single day. Yep. I thought about Jimenez for a little bit, and then going down for value, who qualifies at both second and third, Westberg. So those are the three that really stood out to me during my research throughout the day.
Yeah, I mean, Semien is definitely a top play for me. He has been a reverse splits hitter his entire career, and that hasn't stopped this year. 182 ISO against righties, 347 WOBA. He averages the most fantasy points on this team per game against right-handed pitching. And Cutter Crawford has been worse against righties this year in the split. 187 ISO allowed, 344 WOBA. Even, pretty hard contact rate, 45%. So, like, I love Semien here. We know that he's a dual threat, although the stolen bases haven't necessarily been at the forefront. I know it's probably harder for him to run with who's behind him. It's like, I don't want to steal and get thrown out with the potential to always score a run if I get up, like no matter what base I'm on. So I love Semien. I saw the Diamondbacks lineup is out. Ketel Marte is in the lineup tonight. Fensty hitting second. He's been really good again this year. Like he was really good and like weirdly good in the power department a couple of years ago, and then it kind of fell off a cliff last year. But he's completely back again in that front. 230 ISO against right-handed pitching, 374 WOBA. I love the Diamondbacks tonight. So Marte would be another guy I can get up to. I like Andres Jimenez at $4,000 as well. He has definitely been much better of late. And the one thing we know about Andres Jimenez, especially lately, he's stealing. Like 3 steals in his last 5 games, provides some upside. We know he's a dual threat. They wouldn't have given him, $100 million or whatever it was they didn't think he was going to bounce back to what he was last year. So those are the 3 guys that I've also really taken a look at. Semien, Jimenez, and Marte, now that I know he's in the lineup, are the 3 guys for me above 4K.
The DFS MLB playbook is up at fantasyalarm.com, authored by Henry, also known as Hendry Wilson, right there. So Henry Wilson on the playbook for tonight. Go check it out. By the way, we were talking about Diamondbacks before, and Chase asking us in the chat about a Diamondback stack here of Thomas, Perdomo, Carroll. What are your thoughts on that? Because, I mean, I know we're going to talk about Carroll in the outfield, but in general, do you like that stack? I mean, stack headlined by Carroll. How can you go wrong? But what do you think about Thomas and Perdomo with that?
It's interesting. I mean, Perdomo's leading off, and he's multi-position eligible. We have him here at second short. He hasn't been great, I will say that. He has definitely hit a rut. He's been good overall against right-handed pitching, so that's fine. Thomas is also hitting ninth, so you have like the wraparound stack tonight with Alec Thomas, Geraldo Perdomo, and then Corbin Carroll hitting third. Not like my favorite way that I would approach the Diamondbacks. Probably not my favorite stack, especially with Cookie being worse against lefties or righties this year. I like the middle of that lineup, but I mean, again, you said it. Like any stack headlined by Corbin Carroll is good in my book. So not exactly how I'd approach it, but all all 9 Diamondbacks, honestly, are on my radar tonight.
Good matchup here against the Mets. Let's talk about third base because here's my top play and value play. I've been talking about this guy for RT Sports, the Pick'em game. He's my guy for that for over 1.5 total bases. Jose Ramirez for a top price guy. And then from the value side, I mentioned him just before, Westberg here, because again, I mean, he's having a hot series against the Yankees, expecting him to keep it up once again. So those are the two really that stood out to me. Anybody else that you like?
Yeah, love those two for sure. I like Josh Jung in a tournament if you're stacking Rangers. Like he's good against righties. He's good. He's better against lefties, but he's still good against righties. He does have the Fenway buff. I do if you're playing any type of Red Sox tonight, you'll get them low owned. Obviously, Rafael Devers has been really good of late. I could definitely see myself getting to Devers. I like Gunnar Henderson against Severino. The only thing I don't like about Gunnar Henderson right now is the strikeouts. We're back to like early season Gunnar when he was striking out just over and over and over and over and over. So like we need to limit the strikeouts. Severino does have some good swing and miss stuff at times. Who is playing third for the Diamondbacks tonight? Emmanuel Rivera. I'd rather Longoria there. Probably can't get there. I think it's probably Westberg if I'm going down. You know what? I got a couple of guys down here that I actually have interest in. One, Ramon Urias, the forgotten man for the Orioles, hitting ninth. This is the better side of his split. So if you wanted to play Westberg at second, as you previously mentioned, and then play Urias at third as like a back end stack of the Orioles, like 8, 9, and even do like a wraparound or a guy that we're about to talk about in the outfield too, hitting right in front of them for stone cold minimum salary. I don't hate Urias. And I've talked about it already on the show. Brett Beatty has been incredibly lucky, or unlucky, I should say, Fensty. Like, very unlucky. If you look at his numbers, all the expected numbers, just based on all of his batted ball stats, are much higher than what his 250 average is and what his slugging percentage is. And there has been signs of life for Brett Beatty. I mean, 323 average, 815 OPS over his last 10 games. He's riding a little hit streak right now, 3 games, hits in 6 of his last 7. And I've talked about it kind of all show. Like, Ryan Nelson struggles against lefties specifically. And Brett Beatty, depending on where he hits in the lineup, I don't think we have anything official.
I didn't see it right before the stream. I didn't see their lineup
Yeah,
out just yet.
nothing yet. As I look here, nothing yet on the Mets front, even on lineups that have been released since. But like I can get behind Beatty. He hasn't been. I mean, he's been largely bad, surface level, but the peripheral numbers suggest a turnaround. I like the matchup, so I can get to Beatty. We also just had a lineup scratch Aaron Hicks. Fensty Westberg is now hitting 7th for what it's worth. Not that like, we're moving up a little bit, but the outfielder that I was just teasing is now hitting 6th, which I find incredibly interesting. Aaron Hicks scratched. Blank is now hitting 6th, and we'll find out in a few minutes when we get to the outfield.
Let's talk about shortstops now, because going back to the Rangers for me, it's Seager. But then also on the other side here, if I'm looking for someone value, I'm going back to Cleveland against that amazing pitcher, Jordan Lyles here. What do you think about, because we all know how great Corey Seager is. What do you think about Ahmed Rosario?
So I will grant you that he's been very good lately. Like very recently, he's been good. But when you look at Ahmed Rosario, also I didn't see this comment from Mark, and John Mpemba is a notorious Jose Ramirez hater. So that is why, doesn't like using Jose Ramirez, doesn't like using the Guardians in general. But it is the best case scenario Jose Ramirez slate. And John's probably happy he's not hosting today. Happy to hear John made it safely back from Europe. And Fancy, I don't know if you saw the GQ photo shoot that Howard Bender blasted all over this show a couple days ago, but it was hilarious. Back to Rosario. He's kind of been bad against right-handed pitching over the last 2 years. 268 WOBA this year, 075 ISO, like no, literally zero power. And the problem is last year wasn't much better. 102 ISO, 298 WOBA against righties, and we're talking about like massive samples. So I know he's been good lately, and we like the Guardians. If this is a situation that he beats me, fine. Uh, it's just like he has 2 home runs on the year to begin with. Jordan Lyles is specifically bad against people that hit for power. Like he is a fly ball allower and a home run allower, and Rosario doesn't profile as that guy for me. So I'm out on Rosario at 3,800 personally.
Who do you like for value at shortstop?
Volpe, I mean,
Yep.
he's been the Yankees' best player, truthfully. I know he went over the other day, came back home run from eighth to first. We know when he gets on first, he's a stolen base threat. And I think if he reaches first here with the lineup behind him, he's going to have no problem stealing a base. Sometimes I'm sure that was tricky with Aaron Judge hitting behind you. Like, do I run? Do I not run? To like, if I get thrown out, now it's only 1-0 instead of 2-0 with Aaron Judge at the plate. So um, I love Volpe. He's still underpriced 34. I can get behind Mauricio Dubois at 3,400 as well. You know, he's filled in admirably earlier in the year. 3 multi-hit games in his last 4. He's been pretty good against right-handed pitching this year. Um, it's, but like, I don't think we need to force it anywhere else, really, unless you have someone else. This position is outside of like Seager, like you can play Perdomo, you can play Lindor, those guys are fine. You can play Gunner, who we mentioned at third, but not my favorite position on the board for sure.
I'm spending up. And again, we have the ability to do
Right.
that. We like the cheaper pitchers tonight. We like cheap catchers tonight as well. Ryan's asking about Severino, Yankee fan. What do you think?
Look, I wanna like him. I he threw 6 scoreless against Texas, right? That should be, if anything's a jump start, that should be that should be what gets you kickstarted. And it didn't, because he got absolutely shellacked the next time he stepped on the mound. He's had trouble against both sides of the split this year. Orioles have 7 lefties in the lineup tonight, and lefties are giving Severino a lot of issues. It's a scary proposition. The field is like 20% of the field is getting to Severino. It's because it's a short slate and he's cheap and he does have a lot of talent. So um if I'm playing one lineup, I'm probably not playing him. If I'm playing 3 lineups, I probably have a share of Severino. If I'm playing 20 in a 20 max, I probably have 20%. I'm probably with the field right there on Severino, probably somewhere around there.
Yes. And by the way, more comments from Ryan about DFS can be absolutely brutal sometimes. Yes, it absolutely can be. That's for darn sure here. Let's talk some outfielders, James, before we create our own lineup. So everyone, including us, we can win tonight, win the night. That's what we're all about here. For the outfield, I mean, we mentioned Corbin Carroll before. You can't really go wrong. We haven't talked about Mookie Betts, though. Your thoughts on the spend up for Mookie?
Um, I'm obviously fine with it. Now, Oviedo,
The Oviedo
yeah,
matchup. Yeah.
Oviedo has definitely been worse against lefty bats specifically, but when you look at recent sample and take that for what it's worth, last 30 days for Johan Oviedo, he's been bad against both sides of the split. 357 WOBA allowed to righties, 1 in ISO to lefties. So like, you can definitely get to Mookie Betts, who's in one of those surges right now where everything he hits looks like it's leaving the yard at 1,000 miles per hour. 10 extra base hits over that last 10 games. 12 RBIs, 11 walks. He's been on base 23 times in his last 10 games. Like, that is absurd, So no issues. I think the Dodgers are going to score a lot of runs tonight. So absolutely no issues getting to Mookie Betts if that's where your lineup takes you.
Any other top priced outfielders that you're crushing on tonight?
Yeah, I mean Corbin Carroll, like
Yep.
obviously he's
Yep.
as good as it's been in baseball, really. Ronald Acuna light, kind of like obviously Acuna has 20 plus home runs and 40 plus stolen bases, but like, you know, 18 home runs and 24 stolen bases at this tier is crazy. JD Martinez, if you want to continue to play Dodgers, like that's fine. He homered yesterday, 4 home runs in his last 10 games. I love Adolis Garcia against right-handed pitching. He continues his power surge as well, 5 home runs in his last 10 games. Now 22 home runs on the year. Cedric Mullins against Luis Severino, I think, is a great play. As Ryan talks about playing Severino Urias, two guys that you and I both don't like tonight. So like, whatever. Yeah, we're definitely gonna have two different results tonight, Ryan. That's for sure. Um, Look, we haven't talked a lot of Mariners tonight, and
No, we haven't.
I get it because they have not been a good offense this year. Like overall, their offense has been very disappointing compared to like the magical run that they were on last year. Seemingly, like everything went right for the Mariners last year. Calling up J Rod, he had a special rookie year. Their magical run to the playoffs, like everything seemed to go right for them, and nothing has seemingly gone right for them this year. Like they're in fourth in their division, but like you look at Ronel Blanco, Fensty, right? And like there is some pause for concern. I mean, 2 home runs in 4 straight starts, he's allowed. Two in home runs each in his last 4 starts. You look at the numbers: 227 ISO allowed to righties, 382 WOBA, a 36% fly ball rate. He's then to lefties allowed a 203 ISO, 338 WOBA, 38% fly ball rate. He's allowed a 52% hard hit rate or hard hit percentage to lefties, a 37.5 hard hit percentage to righties. Like been pretty bad overall. And you look at or Julio Rodriguez rather, and I mentioned it earlier in the year, another guy who, if you look at all the expected numbers, has just been largely unlucky. If I were to tell you right now on this slate who my contrarian stack of the day was, and I know we haven't talked a lot of Mariners, it would be the Seattle Mariners because Ronald Blanco is really bad, and it's a pretty good hitting environment in Houston. As Mark leaves because he doesn't want to listen to me talk about my Mariners propaganda right now. Ronald Blanco has been bad, and I'm not saying like we should at all go all in on the Mariners. I'm just saying it's a smaller slate because we lost out the White Sox in Toronto. A lot of the same stacks are being recycled. Everyone's going to play Texas. Everyone's going to play pieces of Cleveland, right? They're going to play Ramirez, and they're going to play Naylor, and they're going to play Jimenez. Everyone's going to get to Arizona because Carrasco's been bad. Everyone's going to play the Dodgers. It's like there's like not a lot of already playing Mariners. Okay, yeah. I mean, his Severino, yeah. I mean, that's.
By the way, Eric, very quickly, because you just mentioned the D-backs here, Carroll over Adelise for me. That's where I stand.
It's really close for me. Like, and obviously, I mean, they're priced right next to each other. I would say I'm gonna. I hate doing this because there's only two of us, so we don't have a third person to split the difference here, Fensty. I'm gonna go with Adolis Garcia, and it's really, but like they're both like top tier pedestal, right? Like it's
right.
I don't feel like there's a wrong answer. I will go Adolis because I think Texas is the best stack on the board. But it's super close. Super close.
James, let's spend the last few minutes here creating our own lineup.
Wait. Let's just a couple value plays. Just.
All right, let me give one value play then. Leody Taveras, 305. Yep. I mean, come on. You can't get much better than that right there. I mean, Leody Taveras at this point for us, when looking at the value here for the outfield position, 305 versus righties. Check him off.
Yeah, I mean, I said this on the podcast that we do every day at 9 a.m. Eastern. You catch it here on the Fantasy Alarm YouTube channel and the Better Sports Network. We at 9 a.m. as well. They should just start pricing everyone on Texas over 4K like they did for the Braves.
No, they shouldn't.
No. It's just like there's no reason Leody Taveras is 3,400 anymore. Like I understand we want our values, whatever, but like make us think about it. Like make us think about it a little bit. Like you were like, oh, let's play Leody Taveras. Don't even, and I agreed. Like it's not even a thought. 3,400 Leody Taveras, top value of the slate or top value outfielder, other than $2,000. And this is the outfielder I was teasing before, Fancy Colton Cowser, who got the call up from Baltimore the other day in his debut. 1 for 3, run scored, RBI, a walk. Again, Aaron Hicks scratched. They moved him up to 6th now. I know the DraftKings icon says 7th, but he's now hitting 6th. So even in Premier, even better lineup spot for Cowser. It's really hard not to plug him at 2K. And I know we don't necessarily need to because there is a lot of value on today's slate. But if you're really dumpster diving for a value play, you can get a lot worse than 2K Colton Cowser here.
By the way, James, earmuff it for a second. Cover your ears because I know you're not a BVP guy. Anthony Santander, multiple home runs versus Severino. Just saying.
Okay, I was just waiting for your mouth to stop moving. I did hear Anthony Santander.
No, you didn't.
I did hear Anthony Santander. I can get behind Orioles. Trust me, I can get behind Orioles against Severino if Severino's going to continue to pitch this bad.
Should we create a quick lineup for the people out there with the last 2 minutes? All right, so from the pitching side of it, we talked about the value already. Bybee we're putting in. Do you also want to put in as well Bradish too?
Bradish or Evaldi, and I think you were more bullish on Bradish, so
yes.
So we can go Kyle Bradish for sure.
Catcher, Yainer Diaz.
Agreed.
Okay. First base, do you want to go cheat with a Carlos Santana or a Nathaniel Lowe, or you want to do Freeman and Walker like we were talking about before?
I mean, the reverse splits for Carlos Carrasco are definitely interesting if we want to get up to Christian Walker. I'm perfectly fine getting to Christian Walker. It's just a matter of like, where else do we want to spend up? We're going to spend up in the outfield.
I want to spend up at second base for Semien unless you want to go Westberg. Go Westberg, and then we go Jose Ramirez, third base.
Like that's a good one.
Okay. Shortstop. Do we have room for Seager maybe, or is we starting to get too pricey?
We might. 3,700. Okay. Because what we can just do is we just play 2K outfielder for the Orioles, Colton Cowser, and we're back up to almost $4,300 a player.
Leody Taveras, we can put him in there as well, save more money.
Yep. So now here's our thing here, Fensty. We have 4,700 for a first baseman and an outfielder, right?
Right.
Do we want to get a Corbin Carroll or Adolis Garcia? And because I'm perfectly fine doing that, and then we'll see what we have at first base, or do you want to spend up at first base?
No, go down to spend up at the outfield spot, first base.
Okay, so if we go Corbin Carroll, we have the exact dollar amount to get Carlos Santana.
Boom. There's the lineup right there. He's James Grande. I'm Justin